Welcome to Q-SYS Control QuickStarts. My name's Jeff Perkins, and I'll be your host today. Today's episode is all about status in Q-SYS. And if you're lucky, with a little bit of work, you can be like me. I'm on double secret platinum probation. Anyway, let's get started. Our message today is actually about indicators and monitoring proxies, and we're even going to take a look at lookup tables, as you can see here in the outline. The big idea is that we can bring even your custom device's status into Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager by making use of the status indicator control. That's what we're going to do. So let's get going. But first, I'm going to lose these because they're a little silly. Swap that around. All right, that's better. Let's close this. And if you've been with us here on Q-SYS Control QuickStarts, you may recognize, hey, I've seen that Perkins Projector 2000, and this whole thing looks really similar. It does. But this one's different. As you can see, it's new and improved. In fact, this is the Perkins Projector 2001. It does more than just turn on and off now. It also gives statuses. And with that, there's been a small update in its API. Let's actually take a look here at our text controller, and then we'll look at the API. So all we did is it's exactly the same as it was. We have BTN power. It's a state trigger, right? That's where this one is from. It's from the state trigger program. Go back and check that one out. We're talking to and from the projector. It's a fake projector, guys, okay? We're not opening a TCP port. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff. We're literally just passing strings back and forth. It's an emulator, okay? Give me a break. But what we've added today is the power status indicator. Now, if you look, you'll see that its control type is an indicator and its type is status. Additionally, we've exposed an output pin. That's going to be really important as we turn the corner and we talk about monitoring proxies. But for now, let's actually look at the code. And we're going to try to get through the code pretty quickly so we can talk about some big ideas. Let's split the screen, close that, bring this over, because all we really need to see is the actual status indicator, because that's where the magic happens. So you may recognize, yeah, okay, Perkins made constants at the top of his script. We still have all of this stuff from the state trigger thing. You can see here that the commands have changed. New API, we now have command::data. So turn it on is now power:1, turn it off is power:0. No big deal. Power status, right? When it talks back, it tells me power status :0, :1, :2, :3, depending on what it's doing. But additionally, now it also just gives us general status indications, and it'll write back status, device status: A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Of course, in the real world, they're more complicated and perhaps more descriptive. We're just pretending here, guys. It's okay. Now, in Q-SYS, let's look at right here, the table called table Q-SYS status, line 29. You'll see that we have filled it with 6 key value pairs. The reason why we have these particular 6 key value pairs is because in Q-SYS, every device, the whole status system in Q-SYS runs on this 6-point scale, running from 0 to 5. And it corresponds to, as you see here, the status indicator is currently saying okay, right? I'm not running yet. But the reason why it says okay is because the value of that status indicator, remember our control trees, the dot value here is currently set to 0. Since it's set to 0, that corresponds to the OK status. And in fact, as you'll see when we turn this guy on, it will actually cycle through both colors and the little pre-formatted messages of OK, which corresponds to the value of 0, compromised, which corresponds to the value of 1, fault is 2, not found is 3, missing is 4, and initializing is 5. And you can see it right here in this particular table. This is the standard Q-SYS status table of values. This is just how it works. All right. Now, this status indicator, there's really two things that we want to manipulate about it. One, as I've said, obviously, we want to change things about its value because that's exactly how we make it change its colors and update the pre-formatted messages. That's 100% built into you change its dot value, it will do that. And it's the dot value that drives everything changing in the status indicator. But if you look around, you might see that some statuses also give you helpful little specific messages. Here, I've added very specific messages corresponding to each particular status. As you can see here, we've built two tables. One is called Table Device Status Value. It's a mouthful. It's educational. Where we are going to hold the values that we want to shove into our status indicator. And as you can see, we have created keys and values inside of our table here, where the key is going to be corresponding to, well, what did the projector tell us? Basically, whenever the projector tells us device status :A, right? We are representing it with the variable sStatus is okay. And so we've created a key in the table that, well, actually, this is a little bit subtle. It's not actually sStatus is okay, literally as a string. Actually, we've passed in the variable. We've actually created a key that is the string device status :A. And what does that key correspond to? It corresponds to this particular value. Well, what is that particular value? Goodness, Perkins, you're using tables for everything. Yes, I am. I am using tables for everything. What is table Q-SYS status.OK? It's right here. It's 0. It itself looks up and turns out to be 0. So why am I doing this? Well, because to me, yeah, it's wordy, but I can basically read and understand what's going on without having to know the fine details of the actual commands and the actual values. Obviously, I have to decode it for myself as a person. I have to come back up here and reference it and figure out what it is. It's a trade-off. It's a thing. You'll figure it out. Okay. I've also made another table called Table Device Status String. And same idea, I am keying them with all of the different received messages from the projector. But I've given fun, whimsical little custom messages associated with what's going on in our little projector. Of course, you'll probably want to have more descriptive, more meaningful things. But hey, we're nothing but fun, if anything, here at Q-SYS Control QuickStarts. So we're trying to have a light moment here on what's otherwise super nerdy. So here we are, basically, when the status is okay, or more specifically, when we get this string, device status :OK, coming in from the projector, we are going to, right here, line 38, we're going to use that information to make it have the value of 0 and the string of okali dokali. Of course we are. Etc. And we'll see how this works. So let's keep moving on and let's look at, in fact, let's actually look, we're going to start our tour right here thinking about the event handler for this projector. And then we'll come back and look at the functions. So doopy-doopy-doopy-doopy-doo. And in fact, I'll zoom in a little bit. Hopefully my head is still out of the way. All right. Shimmy this over a hair. So let's talk about this, this particular event handler. Remember how our projector works. when it talks back to us into the projector RX text box. Again, remember, this is an approximation. In the real world, you probably will have a TCP socket and it's coming back to you in it. But let's just, again, use our imagination. We're getting a string back. And so the first thing I need to do about my string, especially because, right, the way that I've done this is I've looked at the API and I know that sometimes I get strings that talk about power status. And sometimes I get strings that talk about device status. And I'm sure I'll eventually be getting strings that talk about other things, but I don't really care about those things at the moment. Or maybe I've messed up and I'm getting garbly-gook. Here's how this particular event handler works. It's looking right here, line 110. It's using string.match. It's looking inside the string that we receive from the projector, and it's looking for the string power status colon. If we find power status colon in that string that comes back, what does that mean? It means that we got a power status response, which means we should call the parsing function that parses power statuses. Okay? Similarly, and in fact, else if we instead find a device status string, that means we got a device status response, and we should use the device status parsing function, which is what we do here, line 112, line 115. And then notice, if we get anything else, i.e. we don't know what it is that it told us, we are going to say that we got an unknown message and print that out to the debug window so that our system fails in a safe way instead of just, going into some weird state and it doesn't know what to do. That's a big idea. Starting to think about making our code fail in safe ways. All right. Everything else about this script stays basically the same. We've got two functions, right? Do the power status stuff and do the device status stuff. All right, I'm gonna zoom back out, zoom back up. Of course, we've got the functions that you saw in the previous episode, func send command, func set button state. They're 100% the same. But let's look at func set status. This is the one that's doing device status parsing, just like we talked about down here. Now, you may notice, well, Jeff, why that's only 2 lines of code. That's kind of nice. But why isn't there this big decision tree? Why isn't there a big if, else if, else if, else if, else if, like the way that we wrote func set button state, right? I'm really used to parsing like this, big conditionals. Why not do that? Well, one of the reasons is because, I want to create for you a category in your mind. Additionally, like, Perkins, why the heck did you use so many of those? Why did you use tables? Why did you use so many of those things, right? We could have just had a decision tree and manipulated the controls.projector status.value and string, just like we did for this guy. I want to show you a new idea. Now, for some of you, this is not necessarily a new idea, but it is kind of a clever, advanced idea, and it makes use of using tables to a more powerful effort. Some of you are going to call these lookup tables. Some of you might know them as dictionaries. Some of you might call them hash tables. It's all the same idea. What we're doing is, instead of doing a big decision tree, I just look up the answer. That's kind of cool. It also means that I don't spend time evaluating, striking out. Now, most of us, our code is so small that it doesn't really matter. It's more about writing code that is continuing to become more scalable and more dynamic and more powerful. And that's why I'm showing you this idea. So here we are. In func set status, we pass in that string that we get, and then we update this box right here, our status indicators, dot value by looking in the status value table, we just index it. We just stick that string in, and it indexes, and it gives us the corresponding value that we defined up at the top of the script. Same thing for the string. We drop in our ctl.string, right here. That guy gets dropped in as the argument, gets dropped in right here. It passes in, it indexes, and it gives us the value, and it updates the string, and that's it. It's 2 lines of code. There's no big decision tree where we have to write the dot value line and the dot string line over and over and over and over and over. It's more efficient. It really is. And I kind of dig it. So let's actually hit go and let's see this thing work. Ding. So here we are, and our projector should be changing statuses every 5 seconds. And as you can see here, we got status B and it updated. We got status C, and now it says, why you little? Status D, ay caramba. All right, next one. Don't have a count, man. You're just missing. And next is Hidely Ho Neberino. And next is Okali Dokali. And one more. Dope. All right. We've seen them all now. All right. So cool. We now have a functioning status indicator on our script. That's great. That's cool. But at the moment, you need to be actually like in the core, in Designer, live on the system, looking at it to get any useful information out of it. How do we make this even more useful? In fact, how do we get this information to bubble up to Core Manager, or even better, bubble up into the cloud so that it gets into Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager so that we can see that on a single pane of glass like this? I'm going to close the text controller for a moment, and we're going to go offline, 3, 2, there we are. And let's go to Design Elements, open that up. Let's go to our inventory. Let's go to Control, and let's grab a Monitoring Proxy. Drop that right there, pull that guy in. And remember I said that we're going to configure this thing to have a string, have an output? That's why. We're going to wire it into the monitoring proxy. Now, to really make this thing work, you have to come over here and configure it. It's that way, which is backwards to me, but I think I've pointed correctly in the camera. We have to come over here and configure it. So the manufacturer is Perkins. The model is Projector 2001. It's not an amplifier. It's a projector. And there you are. Good enough. And I don't need that anymore. So let's shimmy that guy out of the way. Get out of the way. And I don't know why that guy won't go out of the way now. Whatever. It'll be fine. With that, we can go back online. And when we go back online, what's happening is every time our status changes, that information comes out this pin into the monitoring proxy. And from there, the monitoring proxy pushes it up into all the places that you want to be able to monitor it. So there's that. Now, before we conclude, I want to talk about one more quick idea inside of our script. And we'll leave it right here. Shimmy this over. Get that out of the way. Kill that. All right. One thing. We talked a moment ago about the idea of making our code more resilient, being ready to fail safe, etc. I want to show you something. Actually, the way that we've written our device status setting parsing function, it's got a problem. It doesn't fail safely. Here's what I mean. Let's take this one out. We're going to take that one out. That is going to be letter F, device F. We just took device F out of the table. And what we're going to see down here is as we're running through, our script is going to get angry at us. See right there? it got angry at us. The reason that it got angry at us is because we passed in a nil. Basically, what happened is right here in line 97, as it said, line 97, bad argument, number expected, got nil. What did we do? We tried to pass a string into our table right here to index it, and that string key wasn't in the table. You know what corresponds to a string key not being in the table? What its value is? Its value is nil. So we just tried to assign a nil to the dot value. And understandably, it got angry at us. So our code is going to have to be ready to handle that particular condition. Luckily for us, I've already prepared a solution. Comment that out, and I stuck it down here at the bottom so that you wouldn't see it until now. So let's cut that out. Let's bring that up here, paste it in right about there, and let's turn that code on. And so now what you'll see is it's not going to yell at us anymore. Instead, let's read what we've done here. Line 102. It says, if table device status value bracket arg status does not equal nil, then actually update the dot value. Otherwise, print, hey man, something weird happened at this particular thing. So now look, here it is right here. It tells us. It doesn't yell at us in red anymore. Now it fails in a safe way. That's really good. Because the last thing you want to have happen is you write all of this cool, slick code, and then you don't handle one of these situations and it breaks on you. But with that, we've spent plenty of time talking about status. The big idea is that you can add a status indicator to any of your scripts. Remember, it's a 6-point scale. You can also send in custom messages, and be sure to wire that thing into a monitoring proxy. When you do that, the sky's the limit, and IT will be your friend, and you need all the brownie points you can get. With that, I thank you. Have a great day. We'll see you real soon.